Hey, hello, everybody. I hope y'all are having a great day and hopefully avoiding some of this Texas heat. I wanted to give you just a quick message this morning. Obviously, last message, we know what markets have been doing. The last week, things have actually been coming back up. But I wanted to take a minute and actually talk about some of the silver lining here within these rising interest rates. So part of what we're seeing is actually some of the safe money options have actually come up quite a bit on interest rates and earnings. And so I wanted to address a couple. I'm actually going to break this video into two parts because I don't want it to get too long. So I'll just spend a couple of minutes and talk about I bonds. And so you may have heard a little bit about this, radio, other advertisements, kind of rumblings around. So I wanted to spend just a moment and kind of let you know what they are, how they work, what are the pros and cons, kind of the good, the bad, and the fine print, if you will. So real quick, what an I bond is, it's simply a inflation-adjusted bond from the U.S. Treasury. So the I stands for inflation. And so right now, because we have high inflation, those rates are actually up at 9.62%. They readjust that rate every 6 months. So it's good for that rate until October. Realistically, we still have high inflation. So even in October, I don't anticipate that rate is changing too much. Now, so it's exciting, 9.262%. What are kind of the gotchas? What are the things to go with it? And so there's a few major restrictions. And so I want to kind of tell you about that. One, you can't put retirement money into them. So that's kind of the first restriction. It really is for non-retirement, for cash in the bank, for what was otherwise your emergency fund. Second, they are actually designed to be a 30-year bond. I'll talk about that in a second. You don't have to hold it 30 years, and generally nobody should hold a bond for 30 years. But then the other restriction that also applies to most of you too, and this is a big one, you can only put in $10,000 per year per social. So for a married couple, you could put in $20,000 now. Frankly, that's what Rachel and I did. And so $10,000 for each of us, $20,000 now. You could do another $20,000 in January, but then other than that, you're pretty much done until 2024, at which point rates probably will not be as high. So that's the other big restriction. So the two so far, non-retirement money only, and you can only put $10,000 per social into it. But for a lot of you that have cash in the bank and I call it the emergency money, but let me finish that thought because you can't touch it for a little while either. So maybe not truly the emergency money, but for a lot of you getting 10, 20,000 in there, even though it may be a small percentage of what you own, it's still 10 or 20,000 that's earning a good guaranteed rate. So the other catch or limitation real quick, as I mentioned, it's a 30-year bond. However, after 5 years, you can cash it in with no penalty. Prior to 5 years, you have to hold it for 1 year. So think of it, first year, you can't touch it at all. After 1 year, you can cash it in and you'll give up the last 3 months of interest. So I did the quick math in my thinking it of much like just a 1 year fixed account. So if it's paying 9.62% now, and I wanted to cash it in next year, I'm still going to net a little above 7%. And compared to 1 year CDs, anything else on a 1 year basis, 7% is still a good rate. At the end of next year, or at the end of 1 year, I'll simply look around, see where interest rates are at. Does it make sense to leave it? Does it make sense to go ahead and do something else with it? So that's the ins and outs, if you will, of the I bonds. The other part too, in sharing this with you, you cannot get an I bond, through the bank. It's not anything we can help you with. You actually have to go directly to treasurydirect.gov and create an account, link it to your bank account or savings, and then fund it that way. So I wanted to share with you a little about I bonds, the good, the bad, and the fine print. As I said, I'll get back with you in a couple of days. As I said, the other things we're beginning to see is that with interest rates going up, some of the plain fixed accounts guaranteed rates are back in the 4%. Realistically, over the next month or two, we may be beginning to see 5% again. And so while that doesn't necessarily beat or keep up with inflation today, historically, a 5% rate of return puts you ahead of inflation. So wanted to share that with you. We'll be back shortly. As always, if you have any questions, concerns, feel like we need to talk, shoot us an email, give us a call. Thanks again. Hope you'll have a great day and a great upcoming weekend. Try not to burn up with our 100+ degrees here over the next few days. Thanks.